All right, let's talk Unihertz Titan 2 for a few more minutes, shall we? I've gotten a lot of questions about this device over the last 3 weeks or so that I've been using it. The one thing that I want to address right off the top of the video before I forget about it, like I did last time, was people ask me about camera performance. And look, it's not good. I mean, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know what people were expecting me to say. Some people took it as like a conspiracy theory that somehow we weren't talking about the camera. I don't know who would be expecting good camera performance on this. I will say this, some of the Unihertz devices do get better. Some of the tanks that I've used, the tank phones, those big rugged devices, have gotten better camera performance than the Titan 2. So maybe that's something Unihertz can fix in software before the release of the production unit. I will say this though, there is one thing that you should do, and it's not on by default, and that is you go into settings and you should turn the anti-shake on, which I imagine is some sort of image stabilization, and that does help make the photos a little bit better. But they're going to be soft. They're soft in color. They're easy to kind of, if you're moving your hand, they're easy to get a little bit blurry and lose some detail. In really good lighting, you'll be fine, but for the most part, you're going to struggle to get a consistently good point and shoot image with this. It's not a complete potato, but you are going to carry another camera around. If you're seriously, if camera is in your top 5 reasons why you buy a smartphone, then the Unihertz Titan 2 is not going to make your list. I do like that you could change the picture ratio. Here you could get the 1:1. You could take a 16:9 if you need to, or a 4:3. That's something that I'm glad Unihertz included. Now again, it seems like it's imaging, it's processing. So that's something that could change in software, but for right now, the camera performance isn't amazing. The one thing I want to go over as well is that it's oddly more livable than you'd think. When I first show this to people, they're like, I wouldn't be able to use something like that in 2025. That's like a phone from 100 years ago. But when you actually, the larger screen, even though it's 1:1, so it's a slightly wonky aspect ratio, even though there's that, it's a big experience in the apps. So it's not that bad to live with. Like I said, you could pull up an Instagram and not have an issue. It's just a nice bit. Look at this. It's just a nice big screen Instagram experience. Who's going to complain about that? There's no problem with the aspect. That's a nice ThinkPad. There's no problems with the aspect ratio there. The same with X. The same with Slack. I really haven't run into a lot of compatibility issues because all it does is just kind of stretch the app experience. If you're using, like I'm using the Galaxy Z Fold 7 right now for testing, and that's kind of a bigger squarish experience, kind of the same thing. So you're not going to feel overly limited. The other thing is that if you are getting something like, Pokemon Go is a particularly stretched experience, but you have mini mode. So you could go ahead, do a short press. I have that program to a short press, and then you get more of a traditional aspect ratio for a phone. So if there is an app that's giving you trouble, you could go ahead and put it in mini mode, and then that will alleviate some of that. But I like to leave it in the widescreen, or rather the square 1:1 experience, so I could look at emails and enjoy a bigger, more screen real estate. On the buttons on the side, I really like that. See, the thing that I had a problem with in the past with other companies doing keyboard devices is that they felt kind of slapped on. The keyboard felt slapped on. And Unihertz from the beginning has really done an admirable job putting in options for different sort of key presses on these programmable buttons that really help with a device like this. I'm actually just going to type in mini mode here because I know it gets me to where I want to go. And that's these short presses and long presses. So you got all kinds of shortcut settings here that you could get to. So you have the subscreen control. We'll talk about the subscreen in a moment. But you have the push-to-talk key, programmable key, but then you have shortcut settings. There's all kinds of things that you could do. So the function key 2 right now, you can set that to be a home. So if you don't want to swipe up, you could just have a home button on the side. Tab key, magic key, control, media key, symbol key. So for the people having typing or whatever, you could go ahead and put that there. You have push to talk, so you could pick up one of your program, your communication apps, whether it's Discord, whether it's Slack, whether it's WhatsApp. You could do that. Shortcut settings as well. For long press for the function 2 key. So short press, right, I have mini mode selected there. Long press could be something else. Open flashlight. start a recording, screen record, phone call recording, mute, second display on and off. You could do things with it that kind of make it a more productivity-oriented device. And I do like that Unihertz has put some care into, you could also program the space bar, long press on the space bar from here. So there are a bunch of different things that you could do that make me feel more at home with a physical keyboard device than I otherwise would with something else that just has kind of a keyboard slapped on the side of it. Yes, I understand people are disappointed about no headphone jack. Some people were worried about the branding on the front here. It is not really as noticeable as even the video. Like, look, I have to get the angle just right to kind of make that branding up there. They didn't make it overly flashy, and for the most part, it blends into the device, and I don't really, I'm so used to it, it doesn't even matter. Okay, the subscreen, very divisive. People have gone back and forth on this. You either are okay with it or you're not. If I had to choose, maybe I'm saying no, only because I haven't gotten as much use out of it, but I could also see a use for it. I put this down on a table a lot. It could be face down. I could control music. I could see notifications. There are things, you can even open apps. Like you can open full Instagram, I believe, on here. I've done it in a previous video. So that's something that you could look out for. And I don't mind it. As long as it hasn't taken away anything or hasn't added significantly to the cost of the unit, which I don't really think it would have at $270 Kickstarter. Link in the description. I don't think it helps the channel, but let's just assume it does. $270 for early bird. That might be gone at this point, but $400 for the regular one. So that's something that you might want to consider. I do like the fact that I've talked about this before, that the fingerprint sensor is moved to the side of the unit. I know you could turn it off, but I hated the fact that I kept hitting the trackpad on the old one, or rather the fingerprint sensor in the center that doubled as the home button. I just really like the overall design of this. I think Unihertz has done an excellent job. And the typing has just been absolutely excellent. Just a buttery smooth typing experience. Just really nice. I saw a few errors, even though I know I made one on camera the other day, but just being able to click through, nice positive click, excellent key travel, one of the best keyboards on probably the best keyboard on a smartphone I felt since the BlackBerry Passport. And that's something that is important for a lot of keyboard users, and very little fatigue. I've pumped out long messages, long emails, and I can tell you that the fatigue is negligible. I really don't feel it with this. My fingers glide across this keyboard, and I still get the positive feedback, and I really haven't noticed any pressure on my thumbs. And the original Titan I did, some of the other Titan devices, the Unihertz devices I have, the BlackBerry's not as much, but this is very limited keyboard fatigue for your thumbs. So if you're a big-time thumb typer and you've been waiting for a physical keyboard, this is absolutely the one that you should go for. Capacitive keyboard rather, with the touch. You can scroll back and forth. If you're on a web page, let's go to that ESPN web page. We were on the Android Please web page. You can kind of go ahead and scroll this way. And with a 4.5-inch display, it is nice to not get my fingers in the way, where I can just kind of enjoy the content, scroll through it, scroll through an email, read through an email, all the rest of it. It's nice being able to have some sort of secondary input that's not on the display. So I'm not blocking the display. But the point I wanted to get across in this video was that it's don't be as intimidated by the form factor. Because as someone who's lived with a BlackBerry Passport in the past, and I know a lot of you probably looking at a keyboard device had as well, don't be turned off by the 1:1 aspect ratio. Like I said, Unihertz has included some areas where you could kind of make do as needed. But at the same time, enjoy the extra screen real estate. It's actually a pleasant experience for the most part, and most apps are going to look pretty darn good on it. Most apps are going to look good. They're going to stretch nicely, and you're going to enjoy the screen real estate. My eyes really enjoy looking at this display and reading through an email and just having a wider canvas. I miss when phones had 16:9 aspect ratios. I understand that they were harder to hold, and that's probably why manufacturers went away from it, because they wanted those taller, slimmer devices that were better for one-handed use. But I have bigger hands. I like being able to get a widescreen, or rather you could turn it in landscape, get a nice widescreen viewing experience. Content looks great on 16:9. Your games look great on 16:9. So, and emails and stuff, I just liked having that wider canvas, and the 1:1 kind of gives me some of that back. And I just like different form factors at the end of the day. It's just nice to have something that doesn't look like everything else, that doesn't function like everything else, that you could sit here and actually have some differentiation between devices for a change. So we're not just arguing about chipsets and price and whatever else. We're arguing about whether you need this phone or not. Right? It has a Dimensity 7300. It has 12 gigs of RAM. It has 512 gigs of storage. It has a 5050 milliamp hour battery. I get 3 hours of battery life from this because of a lower power chipset, because of an LCD display. I get really nice battery performance into a third day easily. But because of the fact that it's different, we're not having that conversation as much as we would with a regular device that's $400. This is a phone that if you're on the fence about it, but you've loved keyboards before, go ahead and pick one up. But I've had a significant, not just like one or two people. I've had a significant number of people who I've shown this phone to that said, you know what, I'd actually use that. I'd actually enjoy something like that. And that's something that I think if you pick one up and you actually use it, you're not turned off by the thickness. It's 10 point whatever, 8 millimeters. It is a little bit thicker, but you want that for a keyboard. It feels nice because it's squatter, right? If this were this thick and it were taller and kind of balance were a little bit off, that would be something that you'd have to take into account. But it fits nicely in your hand because it's a squatter device. So you can sit here and you kind of get that nice grip on it. You don't even notice that extra thickness. You just notice it's a nice secure device to type on, and you're not worried about it being kind of top heavy like you would like a Clicks keyboard or something like that. So overall, this is a really nice device. I've been using it for the last 3 weeks. Just I can't get I love typing on this thing. If you're somebody who loved these devices in the past, and yes, Unihertz missed on a couple things like the headphone jack and like expandable storage, but if you really wanted a keyboard phone, this is the best one we're going to have for quite some time. That I can assure you of. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.